Hey folks, my friends, back in the car again. Seems like this is the only time I get an opportunity to make some videos. It is a cool morning here. We had, temperatures in the mid-20s. I guess I shouldn't complain because all my family further north, whether it's my older daughter in Ohio or my extended family in Minnesota, or of course my daughter and my grandson up in Alaska, they've got it a lot colder than I do, so I really can't complain, but I still do. Hey, so I just want to do a quick video while I'm driving here, kind of going through the neighborhood. I don't know if any of you have gotten a chance to take a look at the Gospel of Thomas. And if you remember who Thomas was, they called him Doubting Thomas, which maybe that's why my mother didn't know any better. She named me Thomas, right? And I have always been doubtful about religious gobbledygook that people throw at you. And so I've always been really kind of curious and wanting to figure things out for myself. Anyway, if you remember, Thomas is the disciple who had to, stick his fingers in the nail holes in Christ's hands and the spear hole in his side, because he wanted to make sure that this was actually Christ rather than somebody pretending to be Christ. So, Doubting Thomas, they called it. Well, anyway, if you remember the video that I made talking about the scrolls up in Tibet, where it is claimed by the Buddhists that Christ traveled there and studied there for 7 years while he was moving across the Middle East from the age of 14 until about 29, 30, somewhere in there, where he came back and began his ministry. So quite a significant portion of Christ's life is left out of the Bible. And so these Hindu and Buddhist texts talk about Christ coming to India and Nepal and Tibet in order to study the religions of the East. And interestingly so, he was brought there by the Magi. If you remember, the Magi from the East who attended his birth came and collected him right after his bat mitzvah, and when his mother and Joseph were going to set him up in an arranged marriage. So, and if you remember, at 12, Christ had stayed behind in Jerusalem in order to confer with the religious scholars of the time, and everybody was amazed at his knowledge and understanding of the of Judaism and of God and everything else. And it was, of course, at that time where he made his first claim of divinity. And if you remember when Mary showed back up at the temple after searching for him for 3 days and 3 nights, worried sick that something had happened to him, as any mother would, any good mother, I should say. And they finally found him at the temple preaching. And so I find it interesting that, of course, when they found him, she said, "How could you do this to me?" And his response was, "Where else did you think you would find me but in the house of my Father?" All right? So, so if you believe in the scrolls over there in Tibet, and they've been documented and translated multiple times, you can find that online. But I've put a link to it on Of God and Man on Facebook, so if you want to go take a look there, you can follow the link to go and see it. I've also put a link to the Gospel of Thomas on that site as well, so you can go ahead and read it. But Thomas, after assuaging, I love that word, his doubts that Christ was the risen Lord, when he set off on his ministry, he decided to follow in the footsteps of Christ. And so he headed to the east, and of course ended up in India. And of course he was murdered there, but you can still find the church that he established in India. I'd love to go there, by the way, and you can go there and visit it, and his bones are buried there underneath the church that he founded. So, very interesting. And the other thing, of course, that I find very interesting is that he wrote a gospel, a short one, not very long, just like many of the other disciples, apostles, whatever you want to call them. And when Constantine had his followers of the Roman gods pull together religious scholars, including followers of Judaism and the followers of Christ. Because remember, at that time, Christianity did not exist. What existed was another sect of Judaism that followed the fulfillment teachings of Christ. All right? Which, after the Nicene Convention, when the Biblia was put together, was codified into the universal Christian faith, which is, of course, Catholicism, which means universal church. All right? So, a lot of people will claim other things. The Catholic Church did not exist until the Nicene Convention was complete and the Biblia brought back to Rome, yada, 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 all of that. Anyway, so St. Thomas has a bunch of very interesting short writings. You could read it in 30 minutes probably, his entire epistle. And it was left out of the Biblia because of what it said. And one of the big things, of course, that it said is that the church exists within you. All right? There's no need for all those big grandiose buildings. There's no need to follow a priesthood, yada, yada, yada. You can go on and on. All right? But one of the things that I really was like blown away with, because remember, one of the early commandments to Jews was that all male children be circumcised in order basically to show fealty to Yahweh, and which of course is God, and so Thomas specifically asked about some of these teachings, and in other books of the Bible, you know, you can see where Christ said he comes in fulfillment. But on this specific issue, Christ says to the apostles, if the Father had desired you to be circumcised, he would have formed you that way in the womb. Yeah, think about that. He would have formed you that way in the womb. God doesn't have the expectation that some doctor or priest or whatever is going to perform the bris and slice off the foreskin of your penis, if you're a man, or geez, it grosses me out, the thought of female circumcision. God doesn't want you to be sliced and diced. All right? It is not necessary, especially not in this day and age. However, caveat, I will point out that in the gay community, some research has shown that being circumcised leads to lower rates of HIV infection and transmission. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. And, you know, don't quote me on that research. I've read it in the past. Anyway, I would just throw that out there. But for the most part, there is no need for many of these supposed God-commanded rituals. You don't have to eat fish on Friday during Lent. All right? You don't have to abstain from eating pork. It's okay to eat shellfish. I mean, yada, yada, yada. There's hundreds of them. Literally, hundreds of them. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Gospel of St. Thomas. I'm going to do a couple more videos on the Gospel of St. Thomas. But that's it for this one. So, that's it, friends. I'll see yous all later. Bye.